I hear people say that Trump hasn't figured out how to deal with her. But the problem is she already knows how to deal with him. It is her that's getting the bigger crowds. It's her that's raising the most money. It's her that's polling the highest. It's her that the media is clamoring to talk to. She is in the midst of doing something powerful white men always hate, and that's to be irrelevant. They hate to be invisible. She's erasing that orange stubborn stain that nobody could get rid of.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. I'm just delighted to be here today with comedian, actor, and host of the national radio program, The D.L. Hughley Show. It's D.L. Hughley. He's also on the road doing stand-up on the weekends. He's in Ontario this weekend. He's in Arkansas. He's in Little Rock, Arkansas today. When are you coming to New Orleans, man? When are you coming to New Orleans?
You know, I've been in New Orleans in, it's been about 2 years now since I've been in New Orleans, but we're working on it, man.
Let's get it on the schedule. All right.
Get to the Smoothie King Center. It's weird because my oldest granddaughter is named Nola after New Orleans because my daughter has a love affair with that city.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, good. We'll get it. We'll have great together. We'll take care of you. I'll get you a purple drink. We'll be in good shape.
That's what I need. The purple drink. I need that. That's what I need.
Well, I've been wanting to have you on forever. I got caught listening to your show one morning in a cab or something, and I was like, my D.L. Hughley, reference is being a teenager watching the original Kings of Comedy and thinking, why isn't that guy more famous than the other guys? I swear to God, I'm not a bullshitter. So I've been going back then, and I kind of didn't realize you were doing politics takes till about 6 months ago.
Right. I don't know. It's funny because I've always kind of I think politics became a different thing. And I think, with the emergence of Barack Obama, who probably has the most ex-Twitter followers of anybody in the world, and then you have then you have Donald Trump, and now you have this iteration of it. I think America's consumption of politics just became different. But I've always kind of done the same thing. It's just that my frequency was set to a different kind of a page, and I don't think everybody was kind of on it. But I think now pop culture and politics is kind of morphed into the same kind of animal.
Yeah, maybe in a way that's unhealthy. So have you felt
right? It is unhealthy.
Have you felt like you had to do it more in the Trump era, or like did you change your intensity?
I think the stakes are higher in the Trump area, and I think the people are more in tune in the Trump area. Like I said, because obviously because the stakes are higher, but I think like they just in tune. Now it used to be when the president said something, it didn't show up on social media. Now when they do, it does, and I think people are just, like I said, more in tune to the way they consume it is a different process. Now they don't have to go to a newspaper, or they don't have to go to mass media. They can get it kind of a la carte.
Well, I was pretty tickled by your appearance on the convention stage. We got Kinzinger come on the pod Thursday, so I mean, you guys are kind of neck and neck for giving me the giggles up on stage, and I particularly enjoyed this line and this segment. Let's just listen.
As president, she will give each and every one of us a fair shot in life. But I have to admit, I didn't always believe that. I mean, if you told me the 15-year-old me would be on stage supporting a prosecutor and a teacher, there is no way that I would have believed you. But because of that, I made assumptions about Kamala's record. And I often repeated them to a lot of people. Then one day, Kamala invited me to her house. She put her hand on my shoulder, and she asked me to do some research. Something I had never done. Something a lot of people I know had never done before. Imagine attacking someone's character without a single Google search. So I did what I should have done in the first place. I learned that she had done for us exactly what she promised to. I believe that your apology should be as loud as your accusation, and I'm here apologizing in front of the whole damn world.
So I was with you, man. When I was 15, I wouldn't have been, teachers weren't really my bag.
Right. And prosecutors were less. And I think, it just really speaks to the maturation of people. I never would have thought that I'd have been in that same circumstance. I never would have thought that I'd had the kind of idea, the mindset I had, the allegiance that I had. I think you become a different person. I think what's unfortunate is that most people who grew up where I grew up don't get to have this kind of incarnation of themselves. But but it really was, it was surreal to be in a position, to be in that place that day.
Yeah, the prosecutor thing was less a problem for me in the Denver suburbs as a white boy.
Aurora didn't have quite the
They weren't targeting me. They weren't targeting me for my minor in possession with the same vigor. The second part of that, though, I want to hear a little bit more about that story. So I guess it seems to me through the context clues that you were maybe dragging Kamala about her prosecutorial record, and then you had an opportunity to talk to her. So yeah, talk about that.
I actually don't, and this is not trying to obfuscate, but I actually don't think. I think when she ran in 2019, I think it isn't that she just became a different candidate. I think the nation in general was different. I think we were going through the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor kind of situations, and I don't think anybody was in tune to hearing a prosecutor seeing a prosecutor as a potential president. And I also think that if that weren't true, then she wouldn't be having. I mean, the first thing that happened when she was running in this iteration of herself is that, you know, black women got on, that black men got on. There was this groundswell that I didn't think existed before. But I think, to be fair, I was part of the rationale that she had locked a whole bunch of black men up for truancy and for you know,
weed,
marijuana, and you know, all those kinds of things. And so I think I was caught up in the maelstrom of people that just kind of felt like that. And to my lament, I think it was just horrible that I never even looked to see if it was true or not. Which is something I pride myself on kind of, you know, just calling it like I see it, but it's difficult to do that when you don't even see it clearly. And so I you know, that was, one of the reasons we had occasion to talk, and I actually looked at her record and it was nowhere near what I assessed it to be. And so
what was her pitch to you when you talked to her about
just look at my record? It was look at my record. Actually, it was really, which is weird because we're at the vice president's house, and you know, we're drinking and talking. It got heated, and one of the things because you know, I'm invited to the vice president. I'm thinking I'm gonna say what it is I'm gonna say. I didn't, you know. I think that old biblical scripture. I was Nathan is speaking. You know, I was speaking truth to power, and I was heated. And it was a heated scenario, and she was very measured and calm. She said, "All I asked you to do is to actually look at my record." And I went out and I did, and I felt this small, and and I said, you know, I'm going to do what I can to make this right. I said, I probably had a lot to do with what happened to you in 2019, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure. And it was ironic because this was in November when she was just the vice president of Canada. They were, you know, this was November 2023. And I said, I'm going to get you, do what I can to make sure you get elected. I didn't say reelected. I said elected. And they thought it was a Freudian slip. But, you know, these months later, it turned out to become fruition. But
was it a slip, or did you kind of feel that
I thought that I said it, and I didn't feel as if it was a mistake. And even in Milwaukee, I said it again. We were starting this thing. I think, and I said this on stage, I think I've seen a lot of people say a lot of bad things about people. And I participated in it, obviously. And I think that when you have made these assertions about people, then you have an obligation to make your apology, or your recompense as loud as it is, your accusations. And I think very rarely do you get a chance to do it. And I did. And so, I truly feel horrible that I believed the thing without even looking. I just don't. It doesn't seem like who I am, and I don't understand why I did it. But obviously, it happened.
Where are you at on that now? I mean, how do you balance like the question? I mean, like I said, I'm in New Orleans. I moved from Oakland. We deal with all these questions in these communities. How are you balancing? Like, okay, you need to have some basic level of public safety, but obviously, in a lot of cases, the police have gone way overboard with racial targeting. Like, where do you fall on that balance?
Well, I guess the 50-year-old me has a different assertion than the 60-year-old me, but I do think this. I think getting mad at a prosecutor who has to arrest people or jail people is like getting mad at the dentist because he has to pull some teeth. It's just, it doesn't. But the rationale of a 15-year-old guy living in an urban community, I had never seen what a progressive prosecutor would look like. I had never seen what measured justice look like. I got a lot of tough, but not a lot of love. And so you got to remember, people said debate this, and you're probably old enough to remember, California was Texas. It's not California. This California now was the liberal bastion. It was Texas. It took Proposition 211, Proposition 209, 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah.
So it became, in the 90s, 2000, it became a more liberal California. Ronald Reagan came from California.
Yeah, right. Pete Wilson, man. Pete Wilson was that era.
Pete Wilson,
90s,
Richard Nixon came from California.
Yeah.
So people have this California that people now know is not the one I grew up in. It was one, Proposition 213, Proposition 13, where they stripped everything down to property taxes, and it gutted our communities, and people went to jail by large numbers. So there was never, if you grew up in a system where, you see, a bureaucracy tear up the things you love, then any agent of said bureaucracy would probably be suspicious to you.
So where are you at on her now? I mean, obviously there's this huge vibe shift from Biden to Kamala, and we were kind of like tweeting at each other a little bit during that time.
Well, I know
period after
I was,
the debate.
and full disclosure, I was very angry with the way the Democrats treated Biden. I still have a problem with the way they did it now, but I'm very pleased with this outcome. But I think that there's something to be said. I mean, I guess that, Biden probably isn't much different than Winston Churchill was. Once you win the war, that people can't use you anymore. But I think ultimately he will be regarded as one of the legislatively. I think his legislative agenda rivaled FDR. And I think what he's done, I've never seen a president voluntarily give up power for the good of a nation. And that tells you the difference between him and the other candidate running. There are men who'd rather lose their life than lose the presidential power. And I think they'd rather start a war. They'd rather tear this country asunder than to say, this is not what the country doesn't, me stepping aside is in the country's best interest. And I think it was hard for him to reconcile it. And I think it was hard for me to see him treated that way. But I think I understand, I understand what had to happen. And I think a few people were, I don't think it was just me, but I think the way it turned out now could have never possibly foreseen, and I'm very happy.
No, many of the listeners are with you on that, so they'll be happy to hear that. They're tired of hearing me dogging them. But we're in the moment now. Kamala takes over. We were again. This is hard for me. I was talking about this on the podcast during the time. Like, it's funny, like, as a gay person, like I was very sensitive about Pete. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if we can do a gay guy. I don't know if country's ready. And, our producer Katie's just Jewish. She's like, I'm not sure we're ready for Shapiro. Like, people are mad at Jews right now. And like in focus groups, black focus groups, and my aunt said this to me, and several black women said this to me. They're like, ooh, I'm a little worried about Kamala. People aren't ready. But all of a sudden it happened. And I don't know, we're not out of the woods yet. She hasn't won, but what's your sense for like how kind of excited folks in the black community are about her, and like whether are there still lingering worries about that electability, or how do you assess all that?
I think anytime any group that has been on the outside of anything sees a potential for something to happen for the first time, I think there's a lot more trepidation. I think you come off Barack Obama. I remember Donald Trump has said because of Barack Obama, we'll never have another black president. And then 4 years later, we're on the precipice of it. But so I think whether you're gay or whether you're Latin or whether you're Jewish or whether you're, there are all these things that have never been these things before. Yeah. So but I do sense this is what I do sense. I think the prospect of being without the specter of Donald Trump hanging over us is seductive. I think it's alluring. I think it would be nice to have regular conversations without having these. I mean, what you like him or not, you like his policy or not, he's really done so much damage to every tenet, every important thing in America, from the press and we just can't agree on anything because he decided to tear it all asunder for his own benefit. And I think when I hear people, the funniest thing about it is, and this is what crystallizes it for me, I hear people say that Trump hasn't figured out how to deal with her. But the problem is she already knows how to deal with him. She already knows what to do with him. And I think that is a problem. It is her that's getting the bigger crowds. It's her that's raising the most money. It's her that's polling the highest. It's her that the media is clamoring to talk to. She is in the midst of doing something powerful white men always hate, and that's to be irrelevant. They hate to be invisible. She's erasing that orange stubborn stain that nobody could get rid of. I don't know that this will continue, but this is why it's hard. He's never played. Powerful white men who've gotten to tell you the narrative have never had to play defense, always offense. Never.
This takes us to your other good line from the convention, which we'll play here. There's the one about him being left for the younger woman this time.
They even have Republicans for Kamala. Republicans for Kamala. I guess Donald Trump will finally know what it's like when you get left for a younger woman.
It's kind of delicious, isn't it? I mean, again, we don't want to get out of our skis. We got this debate coming, but it's kind of delicious just thinking about Donald Trump losing to Kamala in particular.
I would be overjoyed, but I think I think political historians will look at what black women have done in the realm of politics in America, where they were considered decidedly different 30 years ago than they are now. And they've risen to the seat of being one of the most important demographic in a major political party in the United States of America. And they didn't do it with bellicosity or loud. They weren't saber rattling. They just were insistent. They just were consistent. They're the demographic that votes at the highest levels of any other demographic. And they have a Supreme Court justice that represents, that is reflective of their experiences. Black men don't. They have a vice president who's reflective of their experience. Black men don't. They could very well have a president that's reflective of their experience. Black men don't. So rather than being jealous or worried, I would take that as an opportunity to learn what they've done to rise like this. I think if you look at the annals of human history, there's never been a diaspora quite like what black women have done in America. So it'd be almost poetic to see it play out.
What do you think about, so Susie Wiles, my former boss, sadly, who is Trump's campaign manager now, she said about maybe a month ago to the Atlantic that there's all this talk about how Trump's trying to reach out to black folks, trying to reach out to black folks. And she basically says that's not true. Actually, we're trying to reach out to one demographic, 18 to 39-year-old black men. And they're doing it with the machismo stuff. They're doing it by like the woke stuff. Yeah. What's your assessment of that? Like, have they had success with that? Like, what's working?
I think that's spot on. I think that's spot on. He is playing to men who respond to fake ass videos with people with bling and talking shit and doing a video. And then at the end of that, they give all of it back. None of it's real. All of it is for the camera. All of it's for the gram. And Trump plays right into that idea. Like, nobody actually does the shit that they rap about. Nobody actually does has the things they say they do. So if that is your mindset, then a guy who does the same thing you do would appeal to you. So I think that she's absolutely right. But I also think that those people tend not to vote in high numbers. They tend to be, just people who pretend to do a lot of things that they don't.
So you're not that worried about it? You don't feel like there's like progress being made? I don't know, like your listeners, your call-ins, like, you're not looking at data, but just are you seeing like a little bit of Trumpy?
I think that I hear the same things that everybody else hears. And I think I've heard that for years, but I also think, that, and just like when I hear, we could talk about, young black men, but I also, on the other side, know the Bradley effect. Yeah. So, sure. I'm interested to see what people do when the chips are down. I do think that it is interesting that a man who thinks he can roll out gold tennis shoes and sell Bibles and T-shirts that says a certain thing about what he expects from people, and it's sad that some people actually respond to that. How many, to what degree, I don't know, but I think that I wouldn't be interested in having a conversation with people that did appeal to.
You're saying Donald Trump's stereotyping people. That's hard to believe.
Sure.
What did you think about the whole Kamala turned black? Like what in the fuck do you?
That was insulting to me.
With all that?
That's insulting. I think it's insulting. I think that we live in a country that told us what we were. This country said that if you have one drop of black blood, you're black, right? It told us that. Now it's telling us for political and expediency's sake that if you have 50% of your DNA, you're black. You're not. I've seen her be a DEI hire. I've seen her sleep her way to the top. I've seen her not be black. And now this iteration of her not being even constitutionally able to run, it all means the same thing. We don't know what to do with you. And every time somebody, I don't know how she isn't black, but I do know this. You know you black when the first thing they call you is a DEI. You know you black when they insult your intelligence. You know you black when they tell you who you are. And I think all those things, I think instantly, all the people who've had any level of success know what that's like. They know what it's like to have whatever you've done reduced to whatever they think you are. And I think that plays whether you're a black woman or a gay person or a Latin person or an Asian person. All of us had different kind of ideas of how that looks.
Did you see my buddy Bakari Sellers on CNN saying that, like making fun of Trump, and like, the time I became black is when I first heard "Back That Ass Up" by Juvenile.
Yeah.
But like, is that right though? Is like the right way to deal with that stuff, being pissed or making fun of him, or both?
Well, I think you have an obligation to deal with it as an old guy. I think that what she does, if you grew up in Oakland, you looked that way, you sounded that way, you had a difference. And I do find it interesting that the people who've ascended, who have been black, who've ascended to this level, this kind of stratosphere, have had names that are typical for American process. You can say, and I think it says something. I think their experiences that prepared them for all the slings and arrows. If you grew up and you were a black dude named Barack Hussein Obama, or you grew up and you were in Oakland and you were named Kamala and nobody knows what you were, you've had to fight identifying yourself your entire life. So going through Oakland, going through a HBCU, Pleasant, a black sorority, prepared you. He pales in comparison to the gauntlet you had to run through to get there. And so I think that's why he's easier to handle. But everybody that has ascended, they can say their name in a way that makes them, whether even when George Bush Senior was saying Saddam, who's like, there's a way that they pronounce your name that makes you less than. So imagine having your whole life to have one people not accept you because of your name and some people lessen you because of your name. I think that gives you a callus of armor that prepares you for whatever else happens.
JD Vance, I would like to get your take on really quick. He's also a guy that I guess had to have some calluses and armor, but I feel like he's processed it in about as unhealthy a way as imaginable. This is a dude that needs therapy instead of being on the VP ticket. But I'm just wondering, like, his whole shtick just doesn't work. I see what you want about Trump. Like, Trump does the racist stuff, but he's funny, right? And like, it cuts it. Like, JD just doesn't work, right? Like, do you see anything about him that's appealing?
Well, whether I think Trump has charisma, but he also was a game show host. Any dude that hosted a reality show, you kind of judge on a different. JD Vance is a man that takes himself seriously. I don't know if he believed what he said, then he would be a psychopath. But the fact that I don't know that he really believes it and is saying it anyway. I think that you can tell that he never expected to ascend to this level because he spoke so freely and without regard, like he did. And it's hard to dig. He is a vacant man. Any man, like I heard him talk about how, drugs coming over from the border, almost, your parents or grandparents were alcoholics. That's legal. They want on prescription drugs. That's legal. So you make these, which is a true problem. I'm not saying it isn't, but trying to blame a thing. You're more likely to be an alcoholic because you have an alcoholic in your family, or a drug addict because you have a drug in your family, than people bringing in meth from across the border. So he seems insincere at best. If you love this woman, she's a beautiful woman, your wife is beautiful, and you love her even though she's not white, you say things that are off-putting to. I don't know anybody who likes you. Like, I can't think of anybody who likes you. And and I agree with this. You've co-opted the language of the poor to speak ill of poor people. Like hillbilly energy. You co-opted and that's the thing. We all co-opt the language of the poor, but don't want to do anything for them. That's you use their stories. My father came here with this, and my mother was this, and they were this. But you never feel like they need any help at all. And that's to me even more
good. I've got one more clip for you. We're just going to play really quick for JD.
And I think our conservative idea is that parents and families should determine what children learn, what values they are brought up with. So many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me, and it really disturbs me. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
It's like, man, what is this guy's deal? Like, he doesn't want nuns as teachers. Like, what's his problem? Like, it's so strange that he's just like in his head.
I don't know that if you really believe that, I know people who don't. My son is, and I don't want to put too much of business. He has Asperger's syndrome. He doesn't want children. He doesn't want children, and he doesn't want children because and this is unreasonable, but this is his assessment of it. He doesn't want to potentially give to his children what he has. Okay. There are people who don't want their children born in this world. There are people who don't think they have the wherewithal, the bandwidth to be. So what if you don't want children, but you want to impact them in some kind of way? You have another skill set, another gift to give them. I think that this idea, it sounds so much like Handmaid's Tale. It's scary to me, and I think as galling and I think as horrible a human being as Trump is, you saw him in fucking, in the kid movie where he's out, Home Alone. You saw him on rap videos. So there's something that cuts against it. JD Vance, it was a movie, then a dude paying $15 million so you could be a senator, and then you saying horrible shit on podcast.
Yeah, dude shouldn't have done so many podcasts. Maybe you shouldn't run for anything. DL, right. I don't know. It's going to show.
No, but it was fun.
All right, I got one more. You brought your kid, but so I've got one personal one for you. I asked the same question to Bakari, so we're gonna get to you, and then I got one comedy question, and I'll let you go.
Sure.
But you got a granddaughter now. You got 2 daughters too, in addition. You got 2 granddaughters.
Two daughters, 2 granddaughters.
How do you like? Yeah. How's being granddad treating you?
You know what? And I never thought, this is true, I loved my children. I never envisioned myself as having children when I was growing up. I've been married 40 years, so I never envisioned having myself as children. I always knew I would, but it wasn't something I thought of. I always knew I'd have children. And then when I had them, I could never imagine life without. But I never thought I could love children that weren't mine. Like, I love my children so much, I don't even need my kids anymore. Like, I call my daughter, I'm like, hey, how you doing? She's like, hey, how you doing? Just put the kids online. You've had your chance.
Since you've had that successful experience, my mother's the same way, by the way. I'm raising a black daughter. She's 6. You've successfully raised 2 daughters. So
I don't know if it's successful.
They're grown, and they got kids. It seems to be doing pretty good to me. So I'm looking for advice. Give me some what do you got for me? I don't know what a teen daughter's like. I don't know what having a black teen is like. I'm sure you've got some tips for me.
If you live through it, you'll be all right. But the thing that I remember when my daughters were growing up, and my wife would be, never break their spirit, because the very thing that annoys you right now, the very thing that you find so hard to deal with, will be the thing that carries them through. It'll carry them on to victory. It'll be the thing that sustains them. So the very thing that is annoying you right now, the thing that you think you can't live with, and how does she do it, and how can I put up with it, will be the very thing that resonates and it'll cut through everything and make you so proud of her later on.
I love that. It's kind of
you gotta live through it, though. I ain't saying there's no guarantee you're gonna live through it. I'm just telling you.
I'm gonna live through it. She's amazing. I'm gonna live through it. It's awesome. All right, we got to do comedy. I was listening to an interview you did with Kevin Hart, and I'm of 2 minds about this. I'm not a comedian, so I also this is another place I'm not coming from. But there's all this. You hear Jerry Seinfeld out there, and he's like, "Oh, you can't do the same jokes you used to do anymore," and people get canceled. And I don't know, man. Dave Chappelle is selling out Smoothie King Center. Rogan's selling out Smoothie King. Right. To me, it seems like things are okay, but maybe I'm being naive. I don't know. How do you assess it?
I always wondered what that meant, because we're grown. I think that there's probably some commercial opportunities you can't get. Right, obviously.
Okay. Like network TV or whatever?
Yeah, like network TV, or there's some advertisers that may not deal with you. Yeah. And that's only till, look, Trump got banned for a lifetime on Twitter, and then unless a lifetime, a year and a half, he came back. So ultimately, it's what you can take. I think your only obligation as a comedian or anything else is to be true to who you are. Now, if that entails somebody not deal, there's nothing I wouldn't say if I didn't want to say it. If I didn't believe in it, if I believe in it, people don't, then that's, there's a new crop of people, or potentially not. I don't understand that. But when Jerry Seinfeld, something like that, you got to remember, this was a man who had who at the apex of commercial success. So maybe for him,
But I mean, you could air Seinfeld now. You could air the D.L. Hughley show now. I'm just thinking about Shane Gillis got fired from SNL. Now he's back hosting SNL. He's doing better than ever.
What won't happen is there are certain things, there are ways you feel. There are people who are so used to being liked and so used to people being. Jerry Seinfeld did a show about nothing.
Yeah,
and I'm not knocking. I think it was obviously it was, but it was about nothing. Imagine the show that's about something, because something requires that you have an intent behind it. When you have an intent, that opens you up to more subjective judgment. Like Kevin Hart does things that are, not as confrontational. So if you do those things, that's not gonna, and you have a commercial apparatus and a success that's designed for that. I knew that when I got off that stage at the DNC, there would be people that had an opinion. Like, we're a 50-50 country, so 50% of the people might like it, 50% would. People that are used to appealing to people with higher percentages might have a problem with that. I think other people don't.
It's a fair trade for you, though. You're like, fuck it, I just got to be me.
I love what I do, and I believe in what I do. And if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I think to me, I'm on stage every week. I do the radio show every week. Every 5 days a week. I'm in a position where I get to do what I love, and if I don't want to do it, I don't. I mean, whether you make enough money, you can do enough things, and I want to do the things I believe in. And when you were talking about your daughters, I do not want to live in a world where I didn't make my granddaughters, or attempt to make my granddaughter's life better. Like, my granddaughters are growing up in Georgia right now. When I was born in 1964, I have more rights than my granddaughter, Stevie, who will be a year old in a week, is born with. That's untenable to me. I don't believe that's tenable to me. I have to be able to do something about it. And if I could do it for my professional apparatus, I will.
Well, man, I apprecidon't you so much. Thanks for coming on this podcast. You went to go see
and you're the only dude I've ever seen wear pearls that it looked dope on. The only one. I was like, wow, this dude.
I don't know if it looks dope. It looks all right. It might look like a midlife crisis. It might look like a midlife crisis.
I wouldn't wear them, but I was like, this motherfucker looks fly. Look at him.
Thank you, DL. I hope to see you in person sometimes. See him in Ontario on Friday, Little Rock on Sunday, DL Hughley radio show every week. We'll talk to you soon, man.